Welcome to the Pastoral Touchpoint Show, bringing you everything you need to know, featuring Joe and Mo. All right, that's enough. Let's go. Welcome to Pastoral Touchpoints. Ouch! Look what I'm working with. Richardo, got a lot to cover today. All right. First, let's talk about the budding romance of Joe and Mo. There was a little bit of a rift going on for a couple weeks.
Yeah, she stole his hat and glasses, little girly thing.
You know how those lovebirds just tease each other sometimes, but Joe didn't take it well. Nevertheless, things have kind of smoothed over, and we spied on them a little bit, and we caught them touring the Lancaster County.
Yeah. Farmland.
Yeah, farmland. That's right. It's just for scenic stuff. So we want to give you a little clip of, their romantic time together. All right. So there you go. There was that. Now, we haven't done the impossible shot in a couple of weeks, and so Joe's hit it, but Rich has not, and so he's going to try and redeem himself. And so let's take you to the impossible shot with Pastor Rich. My money says it doesn't happen.
You don't have any money.
All right, we're at the impossible shot where I'm going to miraculously make this ping pong ball float in the air, and it's going to be shot by this man.
All right, there we go. We're back from the impossible shot. I told you he wouldn't hit it. Actually, we didn't record it yet. I'm hoping he doesn't hit it. He can hit the staple gun though, and the hole punch. There we go. All right, a couple of quick announcements. We are having a service again this Sunday, and we are going back into the sanctuary. All the Crables, man, that was beautiful.
Perfect.
250 plus people came out, so we missed you guys who weren't able to be there. But we're going to go back to Crables on the 28th. That's the plan anyway.
6:30.
6:30, that's right. A little bit later because it's going to be closer to the middle of the summer and it might be hot. So anyway, that's always weather permitting. But this week we're back in the sanctuary, and Rich and I are going to do our best to make sure you know what to expect. So, Rich, take it away.
Yeah, 10:15, normal time. I think the biggest change is we've relaxed the mask requirement just a bit. So we're asking you, when you come into the building, you have it on till you get seated, and then you can remove it while you're seated, back on while we sing, and then back on as you leave. So while you're seated listening, you can have the mask off. The balcony is going to be reserved for people that feel as though their mask needs to stay on the whole time. Mm-hmm. So we have seating in the sanctuary in the balcony for that.
And if you have a medical reason not to wear a mask at all, we're still making room for that. So if you have a medical exemption, we understand that.
3 chairs apart?
Yeah, 3 chairs apart across the whole sanctuary. So we're trying to increase our distance a little bit, and that gets us right at about 6 feet. And we also are going to be opening up the doors to the outside. So if it's a humid morning, the air conditioning might not be able to keep up. So just dress for the occasion.
Yeah, and it's Father's Day, so there may be something special for dads.
There will be something special for dads. I'm going to be here.
I'll be
partaking. All right.
Not till after church.
Yeah, no. And then also, this time around, we are asking you to register for it. We're not inviting people. That was just kind of a mess, and so we're trying to learn from our mistakes, make things clean and simple as best we can. And so hop on around and register for that event. We're going to include the link in this post, so click on that and register if you haven't. We've got room for 150 people, 100 or so in the sanctuary and balcony, and then we'll seat the other 50 in Fellowship Hall watching live stream on 3 large screen TVs. All right, is that cover it?
That's awesome.
All right. We're really thankful for...
The man is doing a great job.
Yeah, that guy, he's the best. Number 17 on the all-time scoring list.
Oh, I thought that was yours. What's yours?
He's so full of himself. Get out of here. Hey, listen. Forget him for a second. Thank you.
This man's doing a great job.
To all of our ministry leaders out there. We do want to make note that ministry, despite COVID, is still happening. And we're, VBS is, coming around the corner. We're making plans for that. The 56ers had an event last night. Youth group's going to be starting up here, Lord willing, in a couple weeks. We're going to West Virginia on a whitewater rafting trip. Sixth graders are coming up into, so if you have a sixth grader, bring them along. And that's about it. All right. Love you guys. Join us at the chairs for another conversation, part 2, about racial reconciliation as Christians. How can we do that well? All right.
Always wanted to wear one of these.
Yep, you look good. See you at the chairs. Okay, thanks for joining us and staying with us here. We're gonna wrap up this episode with a part 2 of the conversation about the racial tension that our country has just been witnessing over the last couple of weeks. And I think for me, my friend Ben asked me a really kind of convicting question, which kind of spurred me on a little bit, especially as a church, because he said, why aren't we as quick to speak on issues like racial injustice compared to things like abortion? Because every January, that's something I'm very passionate about, and we talk about it in January, kind of remembering the Roe v. Wade thing. And so that hit me kind of at home, and we want to talk about this. Rich and I both want to say from the front, just get it out there, that this is not a political statement. We understand that there are political agendas that can be pushed, but the fact that we saw a man, George Floyd's life being taken from him in a really heinous way, I don't think we need to convince anybody out there that that was just a terrible thing and an unjust, wrong thing to have happened. So all that just to say that this is not a political, we're not trying to hit any political agendas here. But what I do think we need to be reminded of is the fact that the gospel it demands us to go into action and to act in favor of justice. And it's not a social gospel that we're pushing forward or any kind of agenda like that, but it's any soul-saving, life-changing, Christ-centered gospel that we're going to rally around that doesn't drive us to action is coming up short. And God's word absolutely mandates us to be doers of the word. And so, Rich, get us into Micah 6:8.
Yeah, what a powerful passage, one that's probably familiar. Just listen to the key words. If you know me, you know I love key words, and it helps kind of formulate the thoughts. Micah 6:8, he has told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God. So in those few sentences, powerful words that number one, he has told us what is good. It's made it clear what is good. And what is the word require? What does he require? But to do justice and to love kindness and to walk. So listen to those words again. Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. This is what is it that the Lord requires. When you hear that the term "do justice," I wanted to know a little bit more about what that meant. So I found some help in the ESV study notes from Amos chapter 5. The man who is studying this says this: justice is much more than legal equity. It refers to the entire scope of God's government of his world. Thus, to do justice involves, on the part of the government, a fair and just use of power and proper functioning of a fair judicial system, especially to protect the weak from the strong. On the part of individuals, justice involves honest and fair business dealings and faithfulness to keep one's word, as well as not taking advantage of the poor or those with less power or protection. And righteousness involves doing what is right in the sight of God, especially with regard to conduct toward others. So those thoughts help me a lot in understanding. But I just think it's interesting where it says, do justice. I think that designates some activity, not just thinking about justice or recognizing it, but to do it. It was helpful for me to understand that passage from Micah 6:8.
Right, we're called to act, and the Old Testament has 613 commandments, but Micah sums them up there just in a few short statements. And then when Jesus is kind of being cornered by the Pharisees and they say, what's the most important commandment? His response condenses it even more, and he says, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so love is an action. It's something we have to demonstrate in our lives. And so two ways that we'd like to put forward for you to consider putting God's word into action would be working towards empathy and then finding common ground. And so working towards empathy is difficult because I think as a white male in America, I need to have the understanding that as much as I want to put myself in a black person's shoes, I am never going to be able to do that wholly, and understand everything they've come through and they experience. And so just to be able to educate myself, I think is one way to do that, to educate yourself as best you can. Read a book, read an article, have a conversation, just to be able to understand in small ways what those community members deal with. Even though it's not going to get you wholly there, I think it does begin to grow in you a sense of compassion for someone and what they've experienced.
Absolutely. And I know I've told Jonathan this, I want to make sure that when I embrace that thought process, that I don't turn it about me. I'm not making it about me. With that open mind as we read and educate ourselves and study, it's not, make sure we're not turning it on that it's becoming about me.
Right, you're not reaching out to a black family just so that you feel good about yourself,
right,
as if you can, now you can sleep at night. Right. That's not genuine or authentic and comes across really poorly. But as long as your motives are pure, to reach out to a black neighbor is a great thing to do now as much as ever. So anyway, so working towards empathy is something that I think is going to help. And then the second thing, to find common ground. And this is where you're going to have to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit. And let me give you a quick illustration. I've grabbed breakfast a number of times with my friend Dylan Garber, and he does something that is unique, but he will try to acquire the taste of something. That's what he says. He's tried to acquire the taste of tomatoes and onions, foods that he doesn't normally like, but he wants to enjoy them because he knows a lot of other people enjoy onions and they enjoy tomatoes. And so he forces himself to eat those things and just kind of savor the flavor for what it is and try and understand what people like about those things. And so in a cultural context, to be able to do things, go places, kind of enjoy things that you wouldn't normally enjoy, or experience things that you wouldn't normally experience, I think you can begin to have common ground with people. So Dylan is an onion lover now, like I am. And I think in this kind of context, when we're talking about race and culture and things like that, to listen to hip hop music. All right, I mentioned the 116 guys last week. So to listen to them, that kind of music, to try different foods. And like I said to Rich, even listening to a black pastor and the way they preach, they do it differently than we do here. But that doesn't mean that it's any less biblical or effective. And so I think to step outside of that comfort zone is a way that you can find common ground with people in ways that you wouldn't naturally anyway.
That's right. And again, that doesn't happen easily. It requires effort.
Yep.
And
Intentional.
and being intentional about it, which are all good things.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree 100%. Stepping out of that comfort area. And if we don't embrace that mindset, if we're not trying to do that, then we're having those doors closed to being empathetic and reaching out.
Yes.
We want to do the best we can. And it comes back to following the gospel.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, I wanted to just mention, listening to your buddy again, John Piper, preach on John chapter 4, a very familiar text of Jesus and his encounter with the Samaritan woman at the well. And his first point just grabbed my attention in talking about how the Lord was graciously purposeful. When you read that in the very beginning of the 4th chapter, this wonderful phrase that he had to pass through Samaria, and trying to interpret what that means. Piper says he wasn't running away from the Pharisees. He wasn't afraid of the Pharisees. He had a divine appointment, and he was purposeful in his getting to Galilee and going a very unusual direction than what most Jews did. And I just love that term that Piper came up with, graciously purposeful. And I think it speaks to that desire to have common ground, that desire to show empathy. We've got to have a purposeful spirit in our hearts about this.
Yeah, Samaria was not an easy area for a Jew to travel
Hundreds
through.
of years of differences between between the Jews and the Samaritans.
Right.
All about worship was one of the things that they wrestled with, but
yeah,
he stepped right into that.
Yeah, you want to talk about racial or cultural tension? That's a pretty big example in the Bible.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we just want to close out by encouraging you to be courageous. It is not an easy thing to fight, but I think Rich and I don't want to be discouraged because we're not going to see an answer to this in our lifetime, even though, like, for hundreds of years, we're trying to make up for hundreds of years of wrong quickly, and that's probably not going to happen, but we've got to do something now to push that ball forward. Otherwise, the victory is going to be even further out into the future. And so we just want to charge you to be courageous. Don't be afraid to speak out against injustices and to stand up for the weak. So when you see someone, disrespecting someone because of their color or culture, don't stand for that. Speak out against it, because that's, I believe, a great example of biblical courage.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Good. We love and miss you guys, and see you on Sunday.